I have on with me my special guest is Pastor Gerard Bouffard, and he's a former Catholic priest, a former bishop of Guatemala, and he's in Canada right now. And he's going to talk about the truth about the Catholic Church, about the Vatican, and also bring up, you've heard this name before if you've listened to my show, and this is Father Alberto, the late Father Alberto Rivera, a Jesuit priest who actually told how the Jesuits operate, how they infiltrate other religions, and he was also one of those people, and he began to out the Jesuits in the Vatican, and for that, many people say he was killed. Well, Pastor Bouffard was a friend of Alberto Rivera and is here to talk about him also, about his past, about the truthfulness he was trying to tell, in light of many people who said that Alberto Rivera was not telling the truth and was under a campaign of discreditation by the Vatican. Now, my second guest is Jon Phelps, and he's been on my show before because he's one of the premier researchers in this area, and he knows Pastor Bouffard quite well, has interviewed him many times, and in fact, he's going to act as the main interviewer in this. I'm going to be more of a moderator because I want you people to get the full truth, and these two gentlemen together, I think, can shed some light on what we've been trying to show, and that is that the Vatican is the key behind the whole New World Order and the destruction of this country, and they use the Jesuit order as their henchmen, so to speak. And if you go to my website, by the way, today I have an article on there, and I asked the question, was JFK's secret society speech one reason why the Vatican orchestrated his murder? Now, on September 12, 1960, President John F. Kennedy spoke to the Greater Houston Ministerial Association, saying emphatically that no religious leader, including the Pope, had the right to control his actions and influence the foreign and domestic policies of this country in any way, shape, or form. For his strong words in his speech denouncing secret societies and religious infiltration, some researchers of the JFK assassination, including my guest Jon Phelps today, claims this speech set him up for the murder by the Vatican New World Order controllers through the Jesuit order. Now, on my website, it gives a rundown of that speech, and then I list the actual extreme oath, the fourth vow of the Jesuits, which was printed first published in 1883. And that's the unedited version, so go to that. And you'll see exactly what these higher level Jesuits are now professing, and when they take this fourth vow. Eric knows about it, he's going to talk about it. And with that, Pastor Bouffard's on the line. With that, let me introduce Jon Phelps. Eric, how are you today?
A pleasure to be with you, Greg, and your listeners.
Well, today we're going to spend 2 hours, and we're going to spend 2 hours, and I'm going to rely on your direction, your care, I tell you what, you have been looking for the truth for so long, and I'm so glad you brought on the pastor here to verify a number of things. And I think what we should do is have you introduce him properly, because you know him well, and enter into the first questions that you think of are important, and I'll be right by your side here throughout these 2 hours. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to introduce my friend and guest on your show today, Greg, Pastor Gerard Bouffard. Welcome, Gerard.
Welcome you, Eric, and welcome everyone in here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Pastor Bouffard resides in Quebec, so his native language is French, so he does have a broken accent.
Well, I can understand him pretty well, so don't worry about that,
okay,
because I think the message will come through loud and clear. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about his Pastor Bouffard's background and lead us up to how you met him?
Okay, when I was on a debate with a couple of gentlemen from England with regard to Alberto Rivera being legitimate or not, I was told of Pastor Bouffard by an additional email person, so I contacted him and I asked if I could come to visit him. So I went to visit him a couple of years ago and spent a few days with him, and he showed me his broken bishop's ring that he had when he was Bishop of Guatemala, and his sword from the Knights of Columbus that he had when he was a member of that. And so we traveled around, and he pretty much bore his soul to me. And so after 2 or 3 days of spending time with him and his familiarity with Alberto Rivera, I took that as a very important piece of evidence that Alberto was indeed for real. So Gerard has helped me very much in that area, but more so than that, Gerard knows the Lord. He's a born-again, Bible-believing Christian man. He's a pastor. He preaches the Word of God wherever he goes, and he also offers videos. And so he's quite at home in talking about the Lord, the Bible, and his past.
You know, we've got 2 minutes before this first break. I want to ask the pastor some questions about Alberto Rivera. You can do that in the next break. I don't think I want to get into it right now. We only have 2 minutes. But maybe you can give us a little background of his, how many years he was in the Catholic Church, and also, I believe he was Bishop of Guatemala, correct?
Yes. I'm not sure. The answer to that question, maybe, Gerard, maybe you'd like to start about your beginnings there as a priest, if you would.
Yes, I was doing my study in Rome because I was an orphan boy, and in the Catholic Church in Quebec, when we are adopted people, you know, we are not allowed to become a priest, but I had to go to Rome to do my study, and I was 6 years in Rome. And to pay my study, I was working in the Vatican. That's why I had that opportunity to work inside the Vatican. And the office, they named that, in this time, they had to name that the Holy Office. In 1983, they changed that for the Office of Protection of the Faith. And I was there. And after that, when the Pope came in, Jon Paul II came in Mexico for the conference of the Bishop of Latin America, I was traveling with him, and during this traveling we had a discussion together, and in his way back from Rome, we talked very hardly in the plane, and when I reach Rome, I take the plane, and I'm coming back in Quebec, and I get safe and in Quebec, and I leave the church in 1977. And after that, I'm born again, and now I'm serving the Lord in the gospel.
Well, listen, Pastor, I have to take a break right now, and Eric, a 4-minute break, but I want to get back and find out what you learned about the Vatican, why you left the church, and also all these things about Father Alberto Rivera. We'll be back in 4 minutes on the Investigative Journal. Okay, we're back for our first segment, I should say our last segment in the first half hour of the Investigative Journal. My two special guests are former pastor and Catholic priest, former Bishop Gerard Bouffard, who lives now in Quebec, in Canada, and Eric Phelps, the author of Vatican Assassins, and his third edition will be coming out shortly, and something that you must get once it's out, because you know something, in our quest to get at who are the real spiritual controllers of the New World Order, Pastor Bouffard is going to tell you some things, why he left the Catholic Church, also verifying he was a good friend of Father Alberto Rivera, who, if you're not familiar with this former Jesuit priest, talks about how they infiltrate other religions, how the Jesuit order is more than just what they say, God-fearing men, but actually the henchmen behind the New World Order and bringing down the destruction of this country. With that, Pastor, we left off, you've been working in Rome for 6 years, communicated and spoke with the Pope on numerous occasions. And I want to get into why you then left the church in the late 70s. And how I'm going to do this, Eric, you've talked to Pastor for a long time, and I want you to go back and give our listeners an insight and ask the questions that you would have asked when you first met him about why he left the church. And I think through you and him speaking, I think we'll learn a lot. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to, first of all, be convinced that he was a former priest. So, Gerard, would you tell us about what your bishop's ring looks like, and when you cease to be a bishop of Guatemala, what do they do with the bishop's ring?
Yeah. The bishop's ring is the symbol of the power of the bishop in his diocese. You know, in the bishop ring, just like at the bishop, the Pope ring, we have a seal on that. Our diocese seal, and in the past, as 50 years, 60 years ago, every letter was wrote and voiced by the bishop to a priest or to someone in the diocese. Officially, they're supposed to have the seal of the bishop in that. And that ring was had the seal of the bishop and the diocese to confirm and wrote official letters, and papers. And that's rings coming from the tradition, because the first bishop and the first popes in the Catholic Church, they was prince of they had honorific titles, The ring was the symbols of the power of the bishop. And when the Pope died, by example, they had to broke his ring to destroy the seal, his official seals. And the new Pope have to have a new seals, a new symbol for his power. And they put that in the ring. And when I get out of the church, I had different seal, different ring. I had to broke the official one I had, but I conserve already my bishop seal, because this is you have a part of my family arms in that seal, That's why I conserve the seal, because this is my property. Nobody else can use it in my place, because that's the personal seals.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long were you Archbishop in Guatemala, or Bishop of Guatemala? Pardon me.
I was 14 years priest, mm-hmm. and the 3 last years I was a bishop of Esquipulas in Guatemala, and I was vice president of the Council of the Bishop in Latin America. That's why I had to go to Rome and travel with the Pope in Mexico for the conference with the Bishop of Latin America.
And what languages were you fluent in at that time?
In that time, when I was in Guatemala, I was speaking Spanish, because I was 14 years there. I had to learn the language of the people, but I have to learn 9 different languages in my life.
Mm-hmm. And so English, French, Spanish,
Creole, Korean, Vietnamese, and that. A lot of language I don't use so much now, because I don't wrote. Before I had like 100 person I had to wrote every month, but now I speak English, I speak Spanish, I speak Creole, I speak French too, and when I was missionary in Africa, I have to learn 5 different languages there too. That's a tribe language, Shona, Nyanja, Matebele, and that's Zulu's language. When we are missionary, we have to learn different language to talk with the peoples.
And whereabouts were you in Africa as a priest?
Yeah, I was priest in Rhodesia. Now they changed the name for Zimbabwe, but I was 5 years in Rhodesia in Kutama Mission. I was the parish priest there, and I was the priest for the religious brothers, and was the priest for the religious brothers and for the school. I was the serving school with 2,500 students.
Mm-hmm. Were you familiar with Bishop Tutu and possibly his relationship with the Jesuits? He was a Protestant Anglican priest, and I was Catholic priest. We was working in the same place, in the same mission. Do you know if he was affiliated with Jesuits?
Desmond Tutu was, the Anglican priest, they are not officially friends with the Jesuits, because the Anglican priests, they are considered by the Church, Catholic Church, as a Protestant, But the Jesuits, they had their power in the Catholic Church. I realized a few years ago, all the Prime Minister in Canada, all the President of the big company, and all the Prime Minister in the province in Canada, in the United States, they was formed at the college by the Jesuit fathers. They was educated by the Jesuit. That's why the Jesuit try to have the control